On this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
Welcome to this episode of Life Science Success. Before we get started today, I just wanted to introduce myself. So I'm Don Davis, and I'm a digital marketer and the host of Life Science Success. And before we jump into the interview with Jimmy Bechtel, I just would like to play a quick message from our sponsor.
This episode of Life Science Success is brought to you by D3 Digital Media Marketing. Dive into the digital world with confidence and creativity on your side. D3 Digital Media Marketing is your all-in-one solution for making a lasting impact online. From the vibrant, engaging world of social media marketing, podcasts, and webinars, to the strategic depths of website development, SEO, and content marketing, we tailor our approach to fit your unique brand story. Let's elevate your presence and drive success together. Your digital journey starts here. Visit d3digitalmedia.com to learn more.
In this episode of the Life Science Success Podcast, I'm joined by Jimmy Bechtel, the Vice President of Site Engagement at the Society for Clinical Research Sites, or SCRS. With a diverse background spanning data specialization, patient recruitment, and operations management, Jimmy brings a unique perspective to the clinical research industry. So with that, welcome, Jimmy.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks a lot for being on. I appreciate it. And I'm traveling this week, getting ready for Christmas and the New Year. And so I'm mobile, but at the same time, still recording my last couple episodes for Life Science Success for the year, actually. So getting ready to close out 2024.
Excellent. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I got some stats from YouTube the other day. It was like in 2024, you conducted already 157 live events on YouTube, and it was amazing to me to think that there was that many different things that I put out there.
Yeah,
Live.
it's incredible. How do you find time to do it all, right? I mean, if that equaled days, it's almost half a year.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of the same thing. Whenever people go in, they seem to just like binge watch a lot of episodes, one right after the other, back to back.
Right.
But less of this about me. Well, first of all, welcome to Life Science Success. But I would love to hear a little bit more about you, and then what led you, more or less to the clinical research arena. What brought you here?
Yeah. So I am one of the many people in clinical research that it wasn't my, I guess, ideal career path. It wasn't something that I was set on. I don't think there's very many people that leave college and say, I want to be in clinical trials. So I was actually exiting my education, looking to go into healthcare finance. And I got an internship at a local organization, a multi-specialty physician-owned clinic back in Oregon in the Willamette Valley, where they happened to have a research department. And that research department happened to report up through the CFO who I was interning with. And a job and an opportunity came up, and he said, you should take this. It pays pretty well. And I was like, I mean, I guess I'll just consider it a stepping stone. It's a job, right? I didn't have one yet. I was kind of this free intern working, and the rest is kind of history. I fell in love with it and the dynamicism that exists in clinical trials, and the work that I was doing, and the work that clinical research in general does was really inspiring. And I haven't looked back since.
Yeah, I think having it be a dynamic environment is one way to describe it. I've heard a lot of, I mean, it's not something that I've done or that I've specialized in at all, and so it just seems to me like there's a lot of both sort of tracking tactical things as well as sort of looking ahead at like all the things that are coming at you as well. So it seems like it is a real dynamic environment as you described it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hardly ever the same day over day, and it's moving really fast, just like medicine, right? We're on the cutting edge of medicine development. So as medicines and molecules come to market, and we're developing new ways to do them, and different, kind of treating different therapeutic areas, it's just so different every single day.
Yeah, and how is your experience working for both site and site sponsor perspectives shaped your approach to your current role?
Yeah. So at SCRS, I kind of sit at this really apex role with the relationship between the sites and the sponsors, and really a lot of other players in the industry, like the CROs as well. But that bringing both of those perspectives has been really, really important to trying to find ways for those two constituent groups in the execution of clinical trials to work better together. Is a lot of what we try to do. Our primary focus is on site sustainability at the society, but a lot of what we do is how we do that together and finding ways to collaborate more effectively. So being able to bring that direct site and direct sponsor experience into the work has been really instrumental in allowing us to advance some of the work that we do.
Very good. And then what joined you? What more specifically prompted you to join SCRS?
So I it's an interesting journey. So I was at the site, and then I was at the sponsor side of things, and then I found my way to SCRS. And all along, I was actually working pretty closely with SCRS. We were members when I was at the site, so I got an opportunity to be part of SCRS through that avenue. But then when we were at the sponsor, I was in a department that was working really closely with SCRS, so I had the opportunity to interact and conduct work with them from that side as well. So it kind of seemed like a really logical progression for me when it came to the work, and I saw a lot of the great work that SCRS was doing to advance the work that was needed to be done at the research site and solve some of those challenges that I saw existing at the sponsors, and felt like it could bring a really positive impact more holistically than I could at either the site or at the sponsor. So it would just kind of seem like a logical progression to me. And then when the opportunity came up, I jumped on it.
So let's talk a little bit about your role. So you're a VP of site engagement. What is that, and what does it entail?
Yeah, absolutely. So I oversee, as the name would allude to, a lot of our site member engagement work, and that comes in a variety of different forms. A lot of it has to do with membership and what we're bringing to the research site members and how we help them specifically with executing their clinical trials and growing their businesses. And the other side of that, as a lot of it is education work. So I actually oversee our education department as well, and the content and the webinars and the various different projects that we do to help maintain their level of knowledge that they do to be successful in the industry. I also oversee a lot of our projects that our industry partners develop with us. We call them global impact partners, and we have a lot of initiatives and projects that relate to the work that they do, and I oversee a lot of the execution of those, because a lot of that has to do with again, engaging the membership to advance some of that work together.
Yeah, so in terms of SCRS itself, it seems like they have a very broad reach as well. So 11,000 research sites, 54 countries. How does the organization unify and amplify the voice of the diverse global community?
So it's a great question. We tackle that in a lot of different ways. I kind of relate it back to our pillars. SCRS stands kind of what the foundation of the work that we do is around mentorship, education, connection, and mentorship, education, uh, connect, and there's one other one, it's eluding me right now, but they that underscores a lot of the work that we do as an organization, and everything that we do kind of ties back to one of those pillars, and helps the sites in a variety of different ways, because some of them need different things. Some of them are at different phases, right? The site that's been around for 20 years probably doesn't need mentorship, but maybe those connection and education opportunities are something that's a little bit more valuable to them. And conversely, for a site that might be just starting out or just getting into the industry, that mentorship and that education is valuable. The connection opportunities that they're able to make through the society, can really, really help them as well. Again, I harken back also to the initiatives and the programs that we do. So we have a variety of different projects and initiatives, different long-term programs that we have in place that are focused on, again, advancing the work of the sites and promoting their sustainability long-term. And membership is also part of that, right? So the sites joining and being able to participate in those kinds of things and really amplify their voice amongst many others has made a really big difference in the site space, where traditionally the voice of the singular site is kind of small and sometimes not as powerful as it needs to be. And then finally, events. We do execute 6 different events across the year. We call them site solutions summits that span a variety of different topics. Some of them are focused on therapeutic areas, like our oncology site solutions summit. Others are focused in particular areas, like our SCRS West, which focuses on technology. But we have several domestically, and we have one over in Europe, and we also have one in Australia. So those are also opportunities for our sites to kind of come together. I really do call them the cornerstone of the work that we do. They are a culmination of everything we do outside of those events, and a lot of the work that we're trying to advance and those pillars that we stand on are really do come to a head at those events.
Very good. Yeah, it looks like the pillars are advocate, educate, mentor, and connect. I
Yes,
had
the advocate
the
one
wrong
was
pillars.
I was forgetting that one to mention that one, but yes, advocate, educate, mentor, and connect.
Yeah, whenever the pressure's not on you, right?
I know,
I
right?
can,
How many
yeah,
times have I
yeah.
rattled those off in the 6 years that I've been with SCRS?
There you go. Yeah, and these are always the moments that sort of catch us all, right? It's like, is nothing like having the pressure of an interview and having it be live and online to help you not remember all the four, but very good. I'm glad I
Yeah,
could help.
right.
So can you elaborate a little bit more in terms of the site facing initiatives that you're currently spearheading at SCRF?
Absolutely. So I'll mention there's a lot of them, but I'll mention a couple of our big ones that we have. Include is the term that we've coined for our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative. For those that are maybe unfamiliar with the clinical research enterprise, there has recently been a large governmental push from the FDA around how we advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in our clinical trials, because we want the medicines that we're bringing to market to be have been tested on a representative patient population for that disease state, right? For example, breast cancer adversely affects Black women in much higher percentages than it does in white women on average. So we want to make sure that our clinical trials and those women that we're enrolling into those studies are, again, those ratios match what's on the clinical trials to what we see in real world science. So there's been a lot of work, and SCRS is leading the way in trying to make sure that the sites are equipped with and have the information that they need to best meet those needs across the industry. The Digital Innovation Initiative, or DII for short, is one that is focused on technology. Over the last several years, we've seen this really exponential growth in the amount of clinical trial-based technology and remote services that are being used on the clinical studies. So we're asking sites to use new technologies in a variety of different ways, more so now than we ever had before, is another way to say that. So this initiative aims to make sure that sites are prepared for, they have the information, tools, knowledge, and et cetera, to really be successful with implementing those technologies. But also, we work in a way on this initiative to make sure that we're gathering information from the sites to be able to provide back to the sponsors and CROs that are asking the sites to use this technology, and kind of making sure that they're aware of the challenges and what the solutions need to be in that space at the site level. And then finally, the SCRS oncology program. This one's definitely near and dear to our hearts. Our founder, who passed away several years ago from ocular melanoma, this was, for lack of better term, sort of her swan song, and was the last major initiative that she helped us bring up before she passed away, but is really there again to advance the work that the sites are doing as they execute clinical trials in the oncology space. It's very different. It's very unique. There's a lot of particular aspects of an oncology clinical trial that don't exist in other clinical trials for other therapeutic areas. So it's its own special little diamond that we need to take a particular care of, compounded by the fact that a vast majority of clinical trials that are coming through the pipeline at most major pharmaceutical companies are in the oncology space. So there's a lot of work to be done with oncology clinical trials as well.
Very interesting. Um, the I have never heard, I don't think ever in my lifetime, ocular melanoma as a type of
Yeah,
cancer that
it's
people think
not a
about.
common cancer. And in fact, um, if memory serves correctly, they told her that she just happened to be, she was from the Maryland area, Baltimore, Annapolis area, and it lives within driving distance to one of the world's foremost experts in ocular melanoma. So she was lucky in that aspect. And they told her, we'll conduct the surgery and we'll go through this, that, and the other. And it has a very small chance of metastasizing. I believe it was 20% of metastasizing. And she unfortunately fell into that 20%. And once that happened, they said, basically game over, and metastasized primarily to her liver, and then kind of spread out from there. And they tried a lot of, she participated in a couple of different clinical trials, and tried a couple of different experimental treatments. But unfortunately, all they did serve to prolong her life, but ultimately, that was the cause of her death.
Wow. Sad, sad
Very
overall, and educational at the same
right.
point in terms of that type of cancer. So, what are some of the biggest challenges that are facing clinical research sites today, and how does SCRS, help the sites address them?
Yeah, great question. And there's several different buckets, and I'll try to be as brief as possible. This is kind of a passion area for me, but technology support, as I had mentioned with that digital innovation initiative, is really that is kind of the way that we're addressing that to answer that question. But as we implement technology and we continue to ask sites to use new technologies and patients to use new technology on clinical trials, that continues to become a major burden. So that's really what the digital innovation and its initiative and its outcomes are designed to help address and alleviate. I would say there's a continues to remain a tremendous amount of financial pressure on the site. There is it's a continuously evolving world. We're seeing a lot of changes in what it means to be a clinical research site and what it means to be financially sustainable as a research site in this industry. And when you're having budget and contract negotiations with a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical company, it can be a real challenge to be able to receive the amount of payment that you deserve as and to cover your costs as a clinical research site executing trials. So we do a lot of advocation work in this space and a lot of education to the sites, speaking back to those pillars, so that they're equipped with the kind of the knowledge, the foundational understanding of what it means to negotiate a good budget and do things like cost analysis and what some of the hidden costs are in clinical trials. Protocols continue to become more and more complicated as time goes on. We're definitely not headed in the simplification direction. As diseases become more complicated, so do our clinical trial protocols. We're asking sites to do more per protocol than we ever have before, and the amount of work that is associated with a given protocol only continues to become more and more challenging. So we do try to provide a lot of opportunity for sites to grow their operational expertise through our events and through some of our thought leadership and webinars and some of the other tools and education that we have, and provide them that support through mentorship. And then finally, the last one I'd mention are a site's ability to engage with patients. Recruitment in clinical trials has and always will continue to be a major challenge at the sites, especially as we compound it with some of those other challenges we see with complicated protocols. But the diversity initiative is definitely one of those ways. One of the focuses of that program is how we can effectively engage the communities so that they're aware of what clinical research is and how to participate in it should they ever unfortunately be qualify for a clinical trial as a result of a disease or illness that they might have.
So tell me a little bit more about the Global Site Solution Summit and what typically people should expect to see there, as well as what should they expect to walk away with.
Yeah, those are really the Global Site Solution Summit. I tell everyone that's where the SCRS community really culminates and where a lot of the work that we do comes to life. We get about 1,500 attendees. I think that was what our total was this last year. About 50% of those attendees are sites, and the other 50% are from industry partners. We call them sponsors, CROs, service providers, your vendors, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's great to have that kind of mix, that even mix of the research sites and the industry partners coming together to talk about and solve some of the challenges. And that's really what we're there to do, is we're there to identify and solve, as its name would entail, solve some of the challenges that the sites are facing. So we develop content that really does address some of the current needs of the research site community and what some of their major challenges are currently. And then we bring everyone together in effective ways through, panel discussions, workshops, plenary presentations, you name it, and lots of networking opportunities to solve some of those challenges.
Yeah, I feel like we just had I'm in Colorado, or from Colorado, and uh, we just had a great networking event with a lot of different service providers, and it's one of the things that I feel like at times are lacking in our industry, where we need those events, where you could sort of quickly sift through, who are all the people that are closest to me that can help me solve a problem. It's great to go to national conferences and things like that, but I mean, at the same time, I feel like there's a need for like close knit networking, where you can say, hey, look, I need this product or service, where can I go to get it?
Yeah, exactly. And we like to have a little bit of both, and that's why we have the global event is kind of our bigger conference, right? 1,500 people, but our smaller events like the Oncology Summit garners about 300 people, and our SCRS West is about 300 as well. And then our OUS events, our Europe and our Australia, are about 400 or so attendees. Europe is shaping up to be breaking records. We're already double registrations what we were this time last year. So we have those intimate opportunities as well as kind of those big kind of group problem solving opportunities as well.
Yeah, it seems like some of the smaller conferences have really been exploding over the last few years. From my experience as well. How do you see the role of clinical research sites evolving in the coming years, and then how is SCRS preparing for the challenges?
Yeah, another great question, because it's such a dynamic environment right now. The definition of a research site is kind of changing. We see these really large scale mergers, these private equity coming in, and these sites kind of conglomerating to really shape what it looks like. And there's more and more decentralization as well happening, right? So you kind of have this really interesting dynamic where these sites are, again, we're consolidating and we're forming these networks, but at the same time we see so much decentralization and remote execution of clinical trials happening. We as SCRS, we're continuously assessing this and trying to shift our focus and our strategy to meet the needs of the modern research site, not only through our programming, but through our initiatives and our engagement opportunity. Because as the site changes, so does SCRS's way in which we deliver the benefits and how we communicate with those sites. We spend a lot of time just really listening and gathering data to support the sites in that future and continue to bring things that are going to be of value to them and help them maintain their business in modern times, because it's not always easy. When as things change, sometimes it's hard for the research sites individually to be able to keep up. So we really try to focus on how we can continue to grow that community and meet the needs universally.
Oh, perfect. And whenever if you were to look back through your history, what's the greatest piece of leadership advice that you've ever received?
I there's a couple of things, and I think they share they share a common thread. So I'll consider them one thing, but one of them is to not only recognize and celebrate success. I think it's really important that we as leaders are attuned to when our teams are doing well and when we've seen successful outcomes. But at the same time, on the flip side to that, being able to provide constructive feedback the right way, I think is also really important, because nobody's got a shortage of being able to provide feedback, but it's not always done in the right way, and it's not always done in a constructive way. And so being able to find out how we do that and how each individual employee or team member is going to be able to receive that is going to be different, right? What works for one person and how I deliver feedback to them in a constructive way is probably going to be different than how I do that with someone else. So again, being attuned to those kinds of things and how people receive their either constructive feedback or their celebrations of success is our job as leaders.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mean I could count on less than one hand. I would say the individuals that I feel I could deliver um feedback in a way that was, one, direct, but also, was truly constructive in my career. Where you just sort of look at it and you go, they give really powerful feedback, and but at the same time we're able to sort of shape differently maybe how I might approach something, or how I might
Right.
take something forward. And it's an interesting thing because there's all these leadership courses that are out there, but as a leader, right, part of your sort of uh, capability needs to be how you're building the next generation of leaders right behind you, I feel like, as well.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and it's so interesting to see, because there's people in my life right now in a variety of different capacities that I see and listen to how they give feedback or how they've given feedback to their teams, and I'm just like, have you ever read a leadership book? Like, do you not understand that that is not how you do this if you want to inspire people and actually get them to change and not just burn them out and make them feel like they're not doing a good job? Because that line is so easy to cross, and I think it's for a lot of people that doesn't really come natural. It's kind of a thing you have to practice and you have to be very conscious of. I know for me, I you want to scream at people sometimes, but in order there, it's you can't do that. It's not going to get the best out of them that you're going to do. And finding when how to deliver that, I think is an invaluable leadership skill. You can go a long way if you're able to do that successfully.
Oh, so true. Which leads me to my next question: what inspires you?
Right now, in this role and what I've seen over these last few years, particularly, and I hate to say since COVID, because everyone always says since COVID, but truly since COVID-19, and the really truly detrimental effect it had on clinical trials and clinical research that most of the world is going to be completely oblivious to. Their resilience and determination is really, really inspiring. It continues to inspire me and to inspire my work and the job that I do on a daily basis. It really does drive me, and I know it drives a lot of the rest of the team towards success, to see how determined they are despite some of the really insurmountable challenges that we face and how slow this industry seems to work and seems to change. They're still there. They're still treating patients. They're still executing on these clinical trials despite all of it. And, we talk all the time how if this was any other industry, there's no way that the things would continue to be the way that they are. But we do. We just kind of keep on trucking through regardless, because at the end of that road is a patient that's waiting for a medication. And so we all kind of ground and center ourselves around that. And, you work through the hard stuff to help bring medicines to those patients.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and so critical that they do continue as well. What concerns you?
Yeah, no. The I kind of alluded to it, but the speed at which this industry changes is something that always concerns me, because I've been in this industry long enough now that the problems that I was facing at the research site are still problems today. They take a little bit of a different form, and we've chipped away at them. I think like they're definitely better than they were before, but it's taken 15 years to be able to get to where we are today. And again, if the airline industry or if if Amazon moved as slow as we move as an industry, I realize it's a gross oversimplification because they're shipping goods and packages all over the world. But if Amazon moved as slow as we move, they would not be the force of that they are today. Or you could name 100 different industries that if they moved as slow as clinical research moves, a lot of those organizations would be out of business that are within that space, or they'd be outpaced by somebody else. So it's the speed at which we move is really concerning. I wish that we could find ways to move a little bit quicker, but there's so many complicated factors that would take probably an entire college course to be able to tease out and work through. But anyway.
Also true. And the interesting thing is that I feel like it's almost across like life sciences. I could say medical devices, drugs, healthcare. I mean, they all seem to work at a different pace overall. So
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. Last question: what excites you?
It's probably cliche, but really the future is really exciting. This is an industry of the future. This is an industry that focuses on what's next and how quickly can one get to the other. Again, kind of in paradox and contrast to what I just said. Despite everything that we look at, if we were to take a snapshot, I equate it sometimes to the stock market, right? You look at the stock market and you see a stock and, you look at the 1 week graph of it and it looks really scary sometimes, or it looks really good. But then if you look historically at your retirement account and you can see, oh yeah, over the last 30 years, it's been a positive 12% trend return, right? So all in all, it's good. And I think if we were to look at the clinical research industry and what we've been able to do and the medicines we've been able to bring to market over the last 50 years, 100 years, 150 years, when, some of the very early pharmaceutical companies were forming. And, I'm an ex-Lilly person. So we get the lessons about Lilly's, foray into Colonel Eli Lilly's foray into the development of insulin, and coming from there and to where we are now with these trials with cell and gene therapy, and there's more trial starts than there has ever been before, and therefore more opportunities to find new medicines for patients, and R&D spending has never been higher. But you compound it with some of those other things that we talked about, and it paints a challenging picture for our industry. And so it will be very interesting to continue to see where we head and where we go. But it is exciting. I think that's part of what drives a lot of people in this industry is the excitement for the future, and what's next is really at the center of everything that we do for those patients.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jimmy Bechtel, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success Podcast. I really appreciated, hearing about SCRS and everything that you're working on. And, I wish you all the best.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it, and last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.